I want to start off this morning by saying good morning to everybody and welcome. We're gathered here today to raise awareness of the plague or the scourge of suicide that's sweeping our state, across our state and across our nation. And it's especially amongst our teenagers and our veterans. Today we're not specifically here as a fundraiser, but if you'd like what you hear from what you hear from our organizations that we're sponsoring, please consider supporting them. We have a donation bucket here. I do want to pay respect to the motorcycle clubs that are gathered here, and thank you very much for coming. Of course, first of all, the V-Twin Cruisers, my brothers and sisters, Green Mountain chapter and the Freedom chapter. And I don't know if anybody's here from the main chapter. Don't think so. We thought they might show up. Is anybody here from the Iron Order?
They all just honked and waved as they went by.
I know they all went south. One thing I wanted to mention about the Iron Order is that they hold an event very similar to this down in Massachusetts, right? How about combat vets? We have somebody here from the combat vets. Thank you for coming. American Legion Riders. Are there other clubs here this morning? Well, Daryl and I'm not sure where she is right now. Anyway, my wife and I lost our son Rob to suicide back in November 14th, 2017. And Megan, my daughter, is here this morning, lost her brother, Rob. I also lost my older brother to suicide back in July of 2007. And one of the real driving forces for me being here is that I don't want anyone else to suffer like we have. I'm going to let the other speakers this morning talk about their personal experiences. And so hence today's event. Suicide, as I said a couple of minutes ago, is a horrific epidemic that's sweeping our state and our nation. The last numbers that I could come up with were from 2018, and Heather may have some more recent numbers than I do, but back in 2018 there were 118 deaths by suicide in Vermont. It's the second leading cause of death in the age group of 15 to 44. Second leading cause of death. Across the United States, there's every year that's in the range of 47,000 suicides. And as I said, Heather may have some more up-to-date numbers than I do. Amongst veterans, 22 deaths every day across the country. And you may remember that back on August 21st, Corey Green, who was an Afghanistan vet, was laid to rest down in Randolph. And some folks here, I don't know if anyone here was part of that motorcycle escort or not. But if you were, raise your hand. Thank you for your service. Really, we're told that untreated depression is the underlying cause in about 90% of suicides. And I know in my son's case, it wasn't untreated, but he certainly was suffering from depression. There is hope. And Heather is going to have more to say about that and the actions that we can take. But Daryl and I think she finally showed up, yep. Daryl and I took a course called Soul Shop, and I highly recommend that. I think we'll be having a course in Burlington next spring, right? It taught us some things that we can do, and specifically amongst the things that we can do is if you have a friend or a relative that you know is going through some tough times, ask them that question. Ask them, are you going through, are you guys going through something really tough? And if you are, have you thought about harming yourself? Have you thought about suicide? You're not going to drive them to suicide. They're going to more than likely be totally honest with you and tell you yes or no. And if yes, or even if you suspect it, there is hope, and there are organizations that you can reach out to, and you can encourage that individual to reach out. Well, that's pretty much enough for me. I want to introduce Heather White, who's from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and she's representing the Vermont chapter, and she'll probably have some statistics, some programming, and some materials that she wants to talk about.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Bob. I'm so happy to be here today. It's my honor and privilege to work for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention for both the Massachusetts and the Vermont chapter. I've been involved for about 7 years, but I wish I had known about AFSP about 10 years ago when I almost lost my own life to postpartum depression and suicide. But the family that we have found at AFSP, the support, the education that I've had to learn about mental health and suicide prevention has truly saved my family and given me my life back. So my family and I are forever grateful to people like you for coming out and supporting the efforts that our chapters do. It's funny, people hear the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and think we must be this big thing, right? This big machine that's out there in the world. And the reality is that we're all volunteer-based grassroots organizations. So we have Brandy and her sister here today, and Bob. We're volunteers on the ground, changing the world every day, making our communities just a little bit safer for suicide prevention. And we can't do it without all of you. And Bob did mention some statistics, and it is important to focus on that. So often people think suicide is rare, which is a dangerous trap to fall into, because when you think suicide is rare, then you're not quite as worried about a friend or a loved one that you know are struggling, because you think, man, but suicide, that would never happen. When the reality is nothing is further from the truth. So Bob hit on some really key ones. It's the second leading cause of death in our young people, as young as 10 years old. A 10-year-old today is 4 times more likely to die by their own hand than by childhood cancer or leukemia. But where's the rabid advocacy for our young people's mental health like we see for other health conditions in our children? It's not happening. And the second largest group that we worry about with suicide, and no offense to the crowd here today, but guys, it's white guys 55 and up. Those are the guys that we are losing at the fastest rate to suicide. It's your friends, it's your dads, it's your uncles, it's your cousins, it's your buddies in your motorcycle club. So please, as Bob was saying, learn some quick and easy ways how to help people, and we're happy to help you do that through any of our programming. That is all being done virtually right now, so wherever you are in the state, wherever you are in New England, you can tune in and join us. But I wanted to focus on something other than those numbers, and I wanted to focus on the hope that we're seeing. Bob mentioned that in 2018 we lost 118 people to suicide in Vermont. Well, in 2019 we lost 110. It's the first time in 3 decades that the rates of suicide have fallen, not only in Vermont but across the entire country. And that is amazing. And the numbers are coming in for 2020, and guess what? The rates are down again. In a time when people thought for sure we'd be losing more people to suicide, when this all started, the newspapers were calling me, the TV stations wanted interviews. They wanted me to say, this is going to be a crisis, a suicidal crisis with all this COVID shutdown. But what we found is that the focus has never been more on mental health and getting help and awareness about mental health issues, and what we're doing works. The calls to the Suicide Prevention Lifeline have tripled during this COVID time, and sometimes even higher than that, depending on where you live. But people are calling, and we're saving their lives. So at a time when people were saying we're going to lose more people to suicide, I kept saying, I think this is when we're going to save more people's lives than we ever have. And we did just that. But what that means to me is what we do works. Awareness, mental health, breaking down the stigma, events like this where we come out and we openly talk about the word suicide and we wear it on our shirts and we say we are raising awareness about this because we know it's preventable and we know we can save lives. And the state of mental health awareness and suicide prevention is in a place where it has never been before. So now's the time to keep, oh, no pun intended. Okay, I guess the mic doesn't like puns, but no pun intended, we have to keep our foot on the gas right now because what we're doing works, and now is not the time to let up. Now is the time to make sure you're talking to your school administrators about how we can really, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, it was a very early morning from Massachusetts this morning. We need to capitalize, there we go, on all of this momentum we have right now with mental health awareness and the lack of the stigma right now, and really come together as a whole state, and we can start saving more lives. So thank you for letting me be here today. We have 4 events going on all across Vermont today. We started our Out of the Darkness Walks to Fight Suicide. Bob mentioned some of our programming that we do. We are a very busy group of volunteers. Please consider joining us and helping us in the fight, and have a great ride today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Heather. Heather's a busy lady. They have events in Newport, St. Albans, here, and Rutland today. And I think she's going to be at every one of them.
That's right.
Our next speakers are Joe and Sue Hoffner. They have a project called the Project Hoffner. I'm going to let them, of course, speak about that. They lost their son Paul to suicide. They have a real hands-on approach trying to reach today's teenagers. And we want, you probably, some folks I see have already gotten their t-shirt. That's what we want. We want you folks, and everyone, of course, to ride on. So, Joe and Sue.
When I'm gone, I'll remember all the turning trees and leaves. So I stop there and take a breath and feel the merry breeze. I think about where I am today and who I want to be, so I can take the many winding steps to create a better me. My nightmare begins when I open my eyes. People are set on saying that life isn't fair. I'd like to politely disagree and say that life is in fact fair. Everyone is given the same opportunity to live. I just happen to have wasted mine. We are Joe and Sue Hoffner, and those are the words of our 17-year-old son, Paul, who died by suicide October 8th, 2018. He kept a journal, and he was very open with his journal, left it around. We never read it because he wasn't private, he wasn't secretive with it. But those were his thoughts. I don't know what to tell you. We've already had statistics. You guys know. Everybody struggles. Not just kids, but adults, veterans, seniors. Right now, someone here or someone you know is running out of options. Someone you would least expect. Somebody who's not on a list. Reach out to them in love. Show them you care. Ask the question and get help. These shirts, we are Project Hoffner, and one of the things that we do is we make shirts, and we make these in our kitchen, our living room. Right now it's in our garage. And it's to promote conversation. We've done a lot with Champlain Valley Union High School and the kids there. Kids have asked, hey, can we put a word on a shirt? Absolutely. The French class that our son was in wanted to put espoir on, which is French for hope. And when they went to Montreal pre-COVID, they wore their shirts and they sparked conversations. So we make these shirts. If you look at them closely, they're not perfect. They're not very good at all, but we make them. Paul was a rower, and we modified the words of a poem to fit today's events. Row on, or ride on, ride on. Another day may shine with brighter light. Ply the oars and pull away. There is dawn beyond the night. So, if you haven't got a shirt, come get one. If we don't have your size, there's a piece of paper there. We'll mail you one. Wilkins, thanks for having us. Thanks for hosting us. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Joe and Sue. They have a real hands-on approach. They're trying to get into schools, trying to work with teenagers, and I wish them all the best. It's a tough road to go down. I want to turn it over now to either Alan or Leroy to talk about the ride and give us some instructions for kind of last-minute instructions.
A full tank and an empty bladder. We thank you for coming out and supporting us, and everybody have a good ride.
Last thing I wanted to say is you may have noticed that some of us are wearing beads, and these beads are over here on the table. And if you've lost somebody to suicide, there's different relationships. White is for son and orange is for brother, that I'm wearing, and you'll see that there's some other colors. So please avail yourselves. How many people here have been touched by suicide? There's a large percentage, and that's unfortunate. So enjoy the ride. Kickstands up at 10:30. And thank you for coming out.
Bob, there will be sandwiches and cookies here after.
Right. Today we're not having a barbecue, we're having sandwiches. Wilkins Harley-Davidson provided, and sandwiches and cookies and drinks back here after the ride.